Hello everyone, and welcome back to History of the Ancient World. Have you ever wondered why our year has 365 days? Or why a week is 7 days long? It seems so natural, but these concepts weren't just plucked out of thin air. They're the result of thousands of years of observation, innovation, and a little bit of cosmic poetry. Today we're going on a journey back in time to uncover the fascinating origins of the calendar. How did our ancient ancestors first learn to measure the passage of time? Our story begins not with kings or empires, but with the earliest farmers. Imagine you're living 10,000 years ago. Your survival depends on knowing when to plant your seeds and when to harvest your crops. Plant too early, and a late frost could ruin everything. Plant too late, and you might not have enough food for the winter. Your life is tied to the seasons, and the seasons are governed by the sky. So you start looking up. You notice the sun's path changes throughout the year. In summer it climbs high in the sky, bringing long, warm days. In winter, its journey is short and low, giving way to long, cold nights. You also notice the moon. It grows from a sliver to a full, bright circle, and then shrinks back to nothing in a predictable cycle. This cycle, from one new moon to the next, takes about 29.5 days. This became one of the first, most fundamental units of time, the month. The word month itself comes from the word moon. Early lunar calendars were great for tracking shorter periods. But there was a problem. If you count 12 lunar months, you get about 354 days. That's about 11 days short of a full solar year. The time it takes for Earth to orbit the Sun and for the seasons to repeat. Over a few years, this discrepancy would throw everything off. Your planting festival, which was supposed to be in the spring, would suddenly be happening in the middle of winter. So, ancient cultures needed a way to sync their moon-based calendar with the sun-based seasons. This is where things get really clever. Let's travel to ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, home to the Sumerians and Babylonians. Around 3000 BCE, they were some of the most sophisticated astronomers of their time. They used a lunisolar calendar, trying to reconcile the cycles of the moon and the sun. The year was made up of 12 lunar months. To fix the 11-day shortfall, they would periodically add an extra month, called an intercalary month. It was like a leap month. A council of priests and officials would decide when to insert this extra month, usually based on agricultural or religious events, ensuring festivals aligned with the right seasons. The Babylonians also gave us something we use every single day, the 7-day week. Why 7? It wasn't random. They observed 7 celestial bodies that seemed to wander across the sky against the backdrop of fixed stars. The Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Each day was dedicated to one of these celestial gods. This idea was so powerful that it spread across the ancient world and has stuck with us ever since. Sunday is the sun's day, Monday is the moon's day, and Saturday is Saturn's day. The other days have their roots in Norse or Germanic gods, which replaced the Roman ones, but the 7-day structure is purely Babylonian. Now let's journey west to the banks of the Nile, to ancient Egypt. Unlike the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians based their calendar almost entirely on the sun. Their lives were dominated by the Nile River, which flooded predictably every year, bringing fertile silt that was essential for their agriculture. They noticed that the annual flooding coincided with the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. This is when Sirius would first become visible again on the eastern horizon, just before sunrise, after being hidden by the sun's glare for about 70 days. This celestial event was incredibly reliable. The Egyptians calculated that the time between 2 consecutive heliacal risings of Sirius was about 365.25 days. Sound familiar? Based on this, they created a solar calendar with 365 days. Their year was beautifully simple. It consisted of 12 months, each with exactly 30 days. This gave them 360 days. To round it out, they added 5 extra days at the end of the year. These were special festival days dedicated to the birthdays of their major gods. But what about that extra quarter of a day? The Egyptians knew about it, but their civil calendar didn't account for it. This meant that over time, their calendar slowly drifted out of sync with the actual seasons. Every 4 years, it would be off by a day. After a few centuries, their summer months would fall in the middle of winter. It would take a staggering once every 160 years for the calendar to loop all the way around and realign with the seasons. While this seems like a major flaw to us, the Egyptians had a separate, more accurate religious calendar to time their festivals. So the civil calendar was good enough for administration. It was this simple, elegant, 365-day system that would have a huge influence on the future. And that future brings us to Rome. The early Roman calendar was, to be blunt, a mess. It was a lunar calendar, probably borrowed from the Greeks, and it originally had only 10 months, starting in March and ending in December. That's why the names of our months don't seem to line up. September, October, November, and December come from the Latin words for 7, 8, 9, and 10, but they're our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months. After December, there was just a messy, unnamed winter period until the priest decided the new year should start again in March. Eventually, 2 more months, January and February, were tacked on to fill the gap, bringing the total number of days to 355. But this was still 10 days short of the solar year. To make up the difference, the Pontifex Maximus, the high priest of Rome, was in charge of inserting an intercalary month. This system was ripe for corruption. A politically savvy pontifex could lengthen the year to keep his allies in office or shorten it to kick his enemies out sooner. By the time Julius Caesar came to power, the Roman calendar was in complete chaos. It was almost 3 months out of sync with the seasons. Caesar, having spent time in Egypt, was impressed by their more stable solar calendar. He consulted with the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenes and decided to enact a massive reform. First, to realign the calendar with the seasons, he declared that the year 46 BCE would be 445 days long. This was nicknamed the Year of Confusion, but it was necessary to fix the mess. Then, starting from January 1st, 45 BCE, he introduced the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was based on the Egyptian model, a 365-day year. But Caesar and Sosigenes incorporated that crucial quarter of a day that the Egyptians had ignored. They decreed that an extra day would be added every 4 years to keep the calendar in line with the sun. This is the origin of our leap year. The Julian calendar was a monumental achievement. It gave the Roman world, and much of the world that followed, a stable, predictable, and accurate way of marking time. The month of Quintilis was even renamed July in his honor. Later, Sextilis was renamed August to honor his successor, Emperor Augustus. The Julian calendar was so good that it was used for over 1600 years, but it had one tiny imperfection. The actual solar year isn't exactly 365.25 days. It's about 11 minutes shorter. This tiny error meant that the Julian calendar gained about 1 day every 128 years. By the 16th century, the calendar had drifted by about 10 days. This was a problem for the Christian church as it meant Easter, which was supposed to be in the spring, was drifting further and further away from the spring equinox. So in 1582, Pope Gregory V stepped in. He introduced the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar most of the world uses today. The reform had 2 parts. First, to correct the drift, 10 days were simply skipped. People in Italy, Spain, and other Catholic countries went to bed on Thursday, October 4th, and woke up on Friday, October 15th. Second, to prevent the drift from happening again, the leap year rule was tweaked. A leap year still happens every 4 years, except for years divisible by 100, unless they are also divisible by 400. So the year 2000 was a leap year, but 1900 was not. This tiny adjustment makes the Gregorian calendar incredibly accurate, off by only 1 day every 3,300 years. And so, from the first farmers watching the moon, to the Babylonian priests observing the planets, to the Egyptian astronomers tracking the star Sirius, and finally to Roman emperors and popes refining the system, our calendar is a testament to human ingenuity. It's a story of our ceaseless quest to understand our place in the cosmos and to bring order to our lives. The next time you glance at a calendar on your wall or your phone, take a moment to appreciate the thousands of years of history packed into that simple grid of days and months. It's a legacy passed down to us from the ancient world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to History of the Ancient World for more stories from our distant past. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. See you next time.